We on.
Hey there.
Happy
Hi.
Thursday, people.
Hi. It's so good to be here on a Thursday, on a cold Thursday in Texas. So listen, we are still, because we're still in Texas, part of us, we're
Well,
still
she's in
waving,
Texas. We're still
absolutely,
partially from the road, coming to you from the road.
coming to you from the road. We're still waving the white flag of surrender. However, over here, we had our pilgrimage to the Women Evolve 24 conference, and we've been exploring our relationship to surrendering because that was the theme of the conference, in order to evolve into better women and people. But we've also been dissecting how surrendering is part of our quest to getting to generational wellness, because you're going to have to give up a few things. Sometimes an unspoken enemy to creating generational wellness is ego and pride. And we might know that there are things about ourselves and our family that we need to examine, but we don't really want to look at it. We don't want to talk about it. We may feel confident that, oh no, we got that. It's all worked out. We're going to pray about it. It's going to be okay. We don't need to go to no therapy. Listen, I've been trying here while I'm in Texas to talk about the therapies a lot. And people sometimes just don't want to hear you. But, that's can be an element of pride, which we are going to talk about last night. We're going to talk about tonight. So you might need to have a difficult conversation with somebody about pride. A boss, a spouse, a child, a loved one. You may say to yourself, I know I'm right and they're wrong, and that's all there is to it. Let's just move on. But in reality, if we're going to try to get well, we need to talk about it and think about it. So, if it sounds like any of this is resonating, roaming around in your mind and your heart, then stick around. This episode is for you. Hi, I'm Pam Williams, a mother.
And I'm Jessica E. Williams, a daughter. And this is a mother and a daughter truthful chat, where we discuss our 35-year multi-layered relationship.
We've been through so many ups and downs. Not only are we family, but we're business partners in the high-stress world of event planning and production for short films.
We've also shared the same therapist for over 10 years. What some people call codependence, we call collaboration.
So join us as we share stories from our lives,
Have candid conversations with other mother-daughter duos,
and shed light on the roller coaster ride of being a woman while raising a woman. Clink,
Cups
clink,
up, mugs up, everyone.
cups up, mugs
Cheers,
up.
not clink. Thank you, Woman Evolve. Tomorrow's successes, today's decisions. Oops. Or today's decisions make tomorrow's successes, however you want to look at it.
Man, you're a little frozen for me. Did you
Am
know
I?
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll keep talking. Maybe it'll work
We're
out.
doing all the recordings and things. I think we'll be fine.
What are
But
you drinking?
anyway, oh, the nettle leaf tea. It is life and godliness. And I think it's gonna be a long evening. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm
Yeah, I
supported.
think it
Oh,
might
and some
be.
and some echinacea and some elderberry as well. You know?
I am drinking the turmeric gold. I was looking for a nettle leaf. I think I have one in one of my suitcases somewhere, but I'm in the midst of packing to come home, so I don't really know where it is. So I'm just
Thanks.
drinking the turmeric gold with a cough drop in it. So hopefully my throat will clear up. So listen, if this is your first time here, welcome to Truthful Chats. If it's not your first time, welcome back. And Truthful Chats, if you don't know, is designed to get us to the ongoing practice of generational wellness, creating generational wellness. If you don't know what that is, look in the description box somewhere below you. Um, and as Jess always says, if you hear other people saying create generational wellness and it's not attached to us and what we're talking about and who we are, and they don't say they heard this amazing mother and daughter duo talking about create generational wellness,
Nuck if you buck. Nuck if you buck.
hit us up and let us know. All right. So we have a create generational wellness theme every month. Our weekly truthful chat will talk about that theme a little bit. And the theme for October is surrender. Today's chat is surrender your pride to elevate. And the way we got to this topic is we kind of got off on a tangent last week about what pride looks like and how it can impact you in your relationships as you're dealing with surrendering. And so we said, we might need to go into that a little bit more.
Indeed. Can you move your mic a little bit closer to you? You just sound a little breathy and a little airy. So I just want to make
Because
sure.
I am a little breath. Oh, I can hear the difference. That sounds
So
better.
much
Thank you so much.
better.
All right. Appreciate
Anywho,
you.
no problem. I am the tech team, so I am the
The
editor.
one
So
man band tech team.
I always be trying to figure it out. Anyway, so pride is really like, hey, we don't like to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it today. It's important. It's important. I think this could be one of our most important episodes thus
Do
far.
you?
I do. I think it is, because this is one of the things that I think holds a lot of people back, or is an issue for a lot of people, but like it's just so uncomfortable to talk about, like freak offs, that like we just be like, I'd rather not, or like being a PDF file, like I just rather not. But clearly 2024, as Prophet Cat Williams and Prophet Kendrick Lamar Duckworth, all the gloves is coming off. We about to watch the party die. And I think pride is one of those things that you really got to watch the party die about. Jermaine Cole, okay, when there was a big three, has a really great song about this called Pride, and it's actually Pride is the Devil. And I think it got a hold on me. It's very deceptive, and I think we allow it to exist in the culture a lot, and we just don't talk about it. So anyway, pride is really like a two-sided coin when you really think about it. There's the head side, there's the tail side. Thank you for those watching us live and direct. We appreciate you stopping by. There's a lot of places you could be on a Thursday, but you're here with us. Okay, so we're talking about pride, and we're talking about how pride is really a double-sided or two-sided coin. So like the head side is all of the positive things, right? When we talk about pride. So it's like our feelings of self-worth, accomplishment. Like it can really help us boost our confidence, drive us to achieve great things, motivate us, like get us to great heights. I can't think of anyone that's done anything great that I'm sure like pride was not an element in what made them great. Like if we talk about Kendrick Lamar Duckworth, like one of the greatest lyricists we've ever had. I'm not even gonna say of our time, that we've ever had. Pride got that man where he is. He was like, I am about to out rap everyone. You don't get to that if you don't have a certain level of pride, right? However, there's also the tail side of pride, okay? Which I feel like he also chronicled well on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Huge fan of that record. One of the most important records that come out of hip hop, period. And that is also with the rest of the catalog. Like Pimp a Butterfly, we feel very strongly about that album as a family as well. But anyway, that's the tail side, if I were to keep it in the hip hop zeitgeist. Of it's a lot of negative outcomes that can lead to pride in a tails negative space if left unchecked, right? If there's no room for error, if can't nobody tell you nothing, if you're not open to learning, if you're not open to being humble, um, if you're not open to grow, okay, and you always are the person that's like, nope, I got it, I'm good, I got it, I'm good, even when it's clearly evident to you and everyone else that you don't.
You don't have it and you're not good.
You might be in pride and ego. And that's not to say like that's bad, because we all deal with pride and ego at some level. I think it's very much a part of the human experience. We're going to be talking about like how pride and ego develops, pride specifically, and when it gets into ego in the unhealthy sense, because it is one of those things that like helps us stay alive and process information and do all those things. And pride is really a complex, self-conscious emotion. It's like one of those emotions that makes you very heightened and very aware of yourself. And it's a crucial role in almost a biologically developed role in our mental health and our social relationships. So let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Said, not Fraulein Maria. Was that
Yes, you
Fraulein
did.
Maria?
That was
Oh, it's called
Fraulein
Julie
Maria.
Andrews. Somewhere in my mind, I had Mary Poppins going on. I just got the movies confused. That's all. But
Well, it's the same person,
it's
baby,
the same
but
person, but different
different
roles.
movie.
Anyway, so we're starting at the
Different
very
movie.
beginning, a very good place to start when it comes to pride. So pride is actually scientists have said like an evolutionary thing. It's something we developed, whether you believe in evolution or not. Pride is something you develop as you matriculate through the human experience. It's a universal human emotion. So we'll talk about, like, they've done studies where they figure out pride is a part of systems all over the world. Like, humans experience it no matter where they live, whether they're in urban areas, rural areas, out in the most remote jungles. Like,
Remote
pride is a
areas.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, pride is a thing. And it's developed to serve an important role in terms of our social functions. So research usually suggests or tells us that pride evolved as a mechanism to help us navigate social hierarchies. Okay, that's very, very important in middle school, which is probably where we all developed it. Got very, very keen. It's the worst time for
It
social
takes me back
hierarchies.
to Inside Out too, because that's exactly
It is
what
where
she
we
was.
learn social hierarchies in
Yep.
that time of our life, and attain higher status in our communities, like, as we go forward. So pride helps you in those settings. And if you saw Inside Out 2, we actually did part of an episode about Inside Out 2. It's just it's hard because it's a complex emotion. And that was a lot of the storyline of Inside Out 2 if you hadn't seen it. If you saw the first one, she's a kid, so all of her emotions are pretty straightforward, right?
Basic.
Happy,
Yeah.
sad, angry, jealous. Now you bring in the complex emotions of
Anxiety,
teenagehood,
angst,
adulthood, right? And Inside Out
depression,
2, right? Where those emotions get a little
boredom.
bit more complex,
Yeah.
right? So pride is one of those emotions. Um, and pride can motivate us in a positive way, right? To pursue our achievements, to showcase our abilities, which can lead to, greater increased respect, value from others, things that are very, very important. There are some studies that have shown that pride is actually nonverbal. So it goes across cultures, including very remote societies that, like, don't really have that much contact with the outside world. Um, I can't think of that one place. It's very, very, very remote. I can't think of the name of it, but I'm sure pride is processed and assessed there. I think we've all seen, like, National Geographic shows where, like, some of those more remote cultures, right? You have warriors, you have the men of the tribe that do the
Hunters.
things, some
Hmm.
hunters. In some places, you have the women. Like, if you think about Woman King, those were very prideful women because they protected the community. They stood up for everybody. They were able to ascend the ranks and the heights of their society because they were women that brought that element to the culture. So even in, like,
And
a
a lot of
Burkina,
times, just too, in the culture, I was just thinking about
you gotta
this.
get closer to the mic. I can't hear you.
I said a lot of times in the culture, I was just thinking that, if you come for in a culture, speaking of those remote rural places where um, childbearing, having a lot of
Yeah,
children is considered
consider a source of
something
pride.
that is very important, then
Mhm,
you will have women that are very prideful because they have a lot of children, and then you will have
mhm.
women that don't have pride because they don't have any. So it just depends a lot. A lot of it is cultural too, but that's what the studies have shown, that whether or not it looks like what we think pride is, whatever is
Right.
important in that culture, in that country, there is a sense of pride that comes with the things that are important to them.
Right. And so, like, yeah, if you take like a Burkina Faso or Fiji, it's really this idea that it's like pride is a universally recognized, innate sort of human thing that develops over time. And it's a learned behavior, man. And that even people who are, like, blind, like, they can recognize displays of pride um, because of
Mm.
achievement and success, and sort of reinforcing this notion of what it means to be prideful. And again, based on different cultures, which we'll talk about, pride takes on different meanings, or people are prideful about certain things. But again, it is a mechanism that is used to gauge social hierarchies and status in a society and a culture based on what you're able to obtain, based on how much pride you have in whatever said thing is. Like, child rearing is very, very important in certain cultures. It's the survival of the culture. So there are women who are much more prideful about that than others who cannot rear children or have children. Um, so yeah, unless they're cat ladies, which, is a whole nother situation.
Or in a made up reality as The Handmaid's Tale. Anyway, we're
In a
going
Thanos universe.
all
Anyways,
different ways. All right.
so yeah, that's a
Listen,
little backstory on pride.
Yes. So it falls into the category of self-conscious emotions, like we were talking about. There's the basic emotions that, happy, anger, sad, whatever, that are just kind of. But then once you start to become more self-aware, and you're able to evaluate yourself, which is why we talk a lot about self-awareness and self-evaluation,
I
is
feel like
because,
every week we've talked about that self
yeah,
awareness every week.
it's a thing, especially as we watch the world around us. So you have to look at how that is impacting you. Like, unlike the basic emotions, these things, they actually say they start to develop in toddlers around 18 months of age, when they start to be aware of these things. But they play a vital role in motivating and regulating your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors, particularly in social contexts. So there's kind of two distinct facets of pride. One is authentic pride, and the other one is hubristic pride. All right. Authentic pride is associated with feelings of confidence, self worth, like Jess talked about, achievement. You're doing a good job. You're the baddest out there doing it. You know you are. It's okay. It tends to promote pro social behaviors. You're good to get along with, you're easygoing, you have a good sense of yourself, and it's linked to positive mental outcomes. However, on the other side, hubristic pride is characterized by arrogance, egotism,
Okay.
egotism, and an inflated self-esteem. So this facet is also often also associated with narcissism, and it can lead to problematic relationships and mental health issues. So, understanding these two different sides of facets of pride is crucial for comprehending the impact on your psychological well being. If you're somebody that's dealing with authentic pride, which, it's clear authentic is better than not authentic in everything, in food, in relationships, and how you talk to people, whatever. Authentic is the way you really want to go. So, um, when you understand that, you understand how one can lead to negative outcomes and one can lead to positive outcomes.
Sorry, big facts. I'm back. So yeah, so pride is I loved learning about the distinctions today. I thought that was super cool. Um, because we always hear like pride, and especially like it's a seven deadly sin, right? We're very churchy around here, grew up churchy, so like pride is like a thing that you avoid at all costs, but we never really talk about authentic pride versus hubristic pride. And that, you know, anything in excess is bad, right? For the most part. Like if you take it in moderation, you can be cool. But to have like a distinction now when you're either dealing with pride in yourself or like engaging with other people and you're like, what kind of pride is this? Now you'll be able to have like a barometer, which is cool. So pride is a universal emotion. It's an expression, and its perception can really vary across cultures, which we were talking about. So like in these Americas, which I hope that it's not the series finale, but it could be. So in these United States, pride is often really revered positively, unless we're talking about like the most monstrous of, of human pride, as we can see. A lot. There's been a lot of hubristic pride came out in
On the TV
2024.
every single
It's a lot of
doggone day.
hubristic pride that has been exposed. But for the most part, in the United States, we celebrate pride, right? Because it is a thing that makes people get to a certain level of achievement or personal success, or we love, titans of industry or people who are, top 30 under 30 or the Forbes list or whatever. So we tend to celebrate that more authentic pride of self confidence, self esteem, boosting you up, pushing you to get to another level, right? But we are an individualistic country. In a collectivist country or culture, like Asian society, right? Or I'll probably say even Indian society, that eastern side of the world. Pride is actually a less desirable trait because it can disrupt and sort of undermine social harmony. So, because everything in that part of the world is so collective based, like it's about all of us for the good and the bad, right? I was like, each of these systems have their own problems, right? That's why when people used to be like, so and so is a communist, I'd be like, yeah, well, there's some bad things about democracy too, bro. Like we shouldn't be breaking it down like that. But anyway, in those cultures, pride is seen as an individualistic thing that can mess with the good of the group, right? And so how the culture sort of view pride and the differences in attitudes that they have really influence our perception of pride and how we take pride in. And so there's a study that was done about the Western world and Western cultures, and they said that they tend to report prideful experiences more frequently than in European cultures, or I'm sorry, Eastern cultures, I should say, just kind of what I was talking about. Because in those cultural contexts, um, individual pride is deemed as bad, whereas um, whenever they are celebrating pride in Eastern cultures, it's usually about the achievement of
A
a
whole
particular group
group.
or the
Yeah.
whole, or everybody did this together, then focusing solely on one person's achievement. And I think that also sort of kind of comes into play just off the cuff about social media, right? I think that's a lot of our problem is we sort of
Mm.
been able to quantify and put into a system. And I would even probably say dating apps to a certain extent too, because that is a little bit of a they're supposed to be places of authentic pride, but a lot of times they end up being hubristic pride because everybody's trying to like show off and flaunt for each other and showcase their best attributes. And some people are lying and not being authentic. And so it really breeds this sort of culture of pride in the most hubristic, sort of narcissistic, arrogant way, even though these are all tools, right? They're all sort of what we make them. But um, we've been able to sort of like take that and put that into a tangible thing that we could touch to explore pride and hubris, and whether we're being authentic. And I think social media really sort of challenges us in that way to figure out what kind of pride are we exercising on any given day. And so again, the underlying structures of pride seem to be consistent across cultures. We know that there are two different ones in terms of being authentic and hubristic. And yeah, depending on your cultural context, depending on how pride tends to express itself, um, you can get some different outcomes going. Um, so it's a fundamental thing, but how you sort of look at it is based on several different factors. So that's something to consider, take into account.
Yes. Yes. Now let's get into some of y'all's favorite topic, pride as it relates to relationships. All right. So pride can play a significant role in shaping your social interactions and your relationship. It impacts how you see yourself, it impacts how you see others, how others view you, and it influences your social standing and your interpersonal dynamics all over the place. Again, social media has had a major impact on this for people, all your friends, all you and your little friend, 250,000 friends and followers or whatever. But, that's just not real relationships. And it has a whole nother level of pride that goes along with it to say you have, 265,000 followers or whatever. Is it authentic? Are you there for the right reason? Are you there to boost your low self-esteem? Are you there? What are we doing here? What is the point of what you're doing that has 367,000 followers or whatever? All right. So even in this, pride can have both positive and negative effects on your relationships. When they're expressed authentically, like we talked about, then it can boost your positive social connections and boost your self esteem, allows you to celebrate achievements, successes, allows you to help people. A lot of people are actually being helped on social media by the information that people are offering, and it might seem prideful. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but what's the ultimate outcome of what's happening from these things that we're sharing? Um, uh, it can motivate others. It potentially can. It, can be life changing. You look at parents and feeling proud of their children's accomplishments. This does something in the family dynamic. It can strengthen family bonds. It can encourage further success. For example, if your kid plays a sport or whatever, and the whole team goes out and there supports them, there's a sense of pride that comes with that. That is good and authentic. But I read something that said It's also the difference between you complimenting your child on being good at a sport and them saying, thank you, I worked really hard, I really practiced. My coach is really good. My coach really helps me, whatever, versus saying, "Oh yeah, I'm just talented like that. I mean, I got it all together. I'm that person," And so that's the difference between. I felt like a good example between authentic pride and hubristic pride, where you're just, thinking it's all about you. When you have people that have that excessive kind of negative pride, it puts a real strain on relationships and it creates barriers to genuine connection. So, if it turns into arrogance, inflated self importance, it can lead to defensive behaviors, unwillingness to compromise, empathize with others' perspectives. You always got to be right. Nobody can tell you anything. Nobody can make a suggestion. Nobody can give you feedback because now you're in that place of arrogance and self importance where can't nobody tell me nothing. You know what I'm saying? And so that is
Shout out to
absolutely
old Kanye. You can't tell me nothing. But
that is absolutely problematic when it comes to any kind of relationship with families, with friends, with spouses, with coworkers, with children, um, romantic relationships. Come on, I know some of y'all got war stories that you're now realizing you thought it was one thing, but maybe after listening to this, you're going to say, oh, that person really had a pride problem, an ego problem that we couldn't get past. It was not me. It was not this or that. It was that they just have a very inflated image of themselves. They're very narcissistic and they can't um, see any other way to be for whatever reason. How that got there, we can go into a whole long thing about that. But we all know those people that we've met that you feel like that about. So, again, depending on who the prideful person, think about your group of people. Think about who in your social hierarchy, who's the prideful one? Who's the one that everybody goes, oh my God, here he goes, or here she goes, or whatever. They always have to be in the front, in the pictures. They always have to, have the last word. They always have a story that's better than the story that you just told. Everybody knows the type, right? And so, as we mentioned earlier, this evolved as a mechanism that helps individuals achieve and maintain social rank. And so sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's really bad. If you're really not about that life, you just don't worry, be happy kind of person, that attaining social rank is not important to you. But if that's the end all be all that describes who you are to yourself, who you think you are, who you want to present to the world, then maintaining that persona is the most important to you thing to you at all costs. And it can potentially lead to really deep problems, um, really bad relationships, and as I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about people that I've known over my lifetime and that I know now or whatever, that I'm like, come on, y'all, just calm yourself down and get to a place where you can understand and see what's authentic pride, what's good for you, and what the pride is that you have that's really not helpful and not useful, and you can get better about that. All right. So again, two
I think
different
the thing that
types.
comes up for me, like as I'm listening to you talk about it, is like I I think we usually try to regulate this type of like narcissism and like whatever to like middle school, high school. Like I'm thinking about like Mean Girls. I haven't seen the new one, but we watched the old one not too long ago. Me and Jesse, and part of that story was that these girls had created this like sort of artifice in which they could be so ranked socially high, um and they would put other people down. Like they created the sort of metrics or the standard or the system by which people are being judged, where they would be at the top of the hierarchy and everybody else would be at the bottom. And then Katie comes in, Lindsay Lohan's character, who's not into any of that stuff. Like she don't care. She here from Africa. She was growing up into a whole different system and all different kinds of values. And then she comes into this world, which they use the sort of analogy of like this animal kingdom and the hierarchy of how things
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Um, but it was so now she goes from being a person that didn't care about that to somebody who ends up caring about it for the friends that she had to get dirt on people and do this kind of thing, to like really becoming sucked in by the world. Like she got intoxicated by it and the power that came with it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's like, you know, towards the end of the movie, it's like everybody was broken down. Like they had to like cancel school and stop everything because what was in the book got out and everybody's feelings about everybody came out and all the girls started
Oh,
getting
that's
mean.
that Burn Book movie or whatever.
Yeah, and there's the burn
Yeah,
book
yeah,
and
yeah.
everybody went crazy. And then they had to like get everybody counseling. And there was all kinds of stuff that they had discussed from when they were younger that was coming up between people. It was all these sort of things of like people had started an authentic pride, but then because of those social hierarchies and those statuses, hubristic pride started to creep in there and got like really, really destructive. And I think adults do that all the time. Like Pam is saying, there's that
Absolutely.
person at the work, at your workplace, at your church. It could be your
People you
spouse,
don't know now with
a
social media.
kid,
That's what I'm saying. It's like
people you don't know
people you
now
don't
who
even
are
know.
clearly interacting and promoting hubristic pride. That makes you feel some type of way on purpose. I was like that. If anything, that should just affirm you like you're not crazy. Like the feelings that you feel as you're scrolling, you know what I mean? You could go from laughing to being educated to like really, really feeling strong, strong feelings of hate or jealousy or envy, or you start feeling low on yourself or down on
Inadequacy. Yeah.
yourself, yeah, inadequacy, or all these great things are happening for other people and they're not happening for me. Um, and I think instead of being in a space where you're judging yourself, you go, okay, this might be a person that's operating in hubristic pride. Like, let me check myself and maybe go focus on some other things. Or let me get my gratitude journal out and like write some things that I'm happy about that I'm
Yep. Yep.
authentically proud of. So just things to keep in mind. But yeah, Mean Girls definitely came to mind as you was talking because I was like, yeah,
I don't
that was
think I've
great.
ever watched it. We can watch it when I get back. Now, listen, shared pride is one of our personal favorites. This is when shared experiences of pride can strengthen social bonds instead of tearing them down. And it fosters a sense of community in group settings, such as sports teams or workplaces. Collective pride can enhance that cohesion and that motivation. And then, of course, we're really big on cultural pride because that helps create inclusive spaces and gives us a sense of belonging. And as you can see, as the selection is unfolding, that there is a lot of different kinds of pride going on. We're just trying to do what's best for the world. But
But
that might
no,
not
there's
be
also
everybody's testimony.
there's an attack on cultural pride. I mean, if we've
Mhm.
seen, you know, they're trying to get rid of DEI, what
Yep.
they did with the Fearless Fund, like there's literally a literal attack on having cultural pride, unless it's white straight male nationalist pride. Um, so you know, we're not gonna push you, but we're just gonna keep reminding you there's a lot of things at stake on the ballot this year.
Y'all better get out, please, y'all. Please, please, please. Be smart about your vote. Really, be smart about your vote. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Be smart about your vote.
And
And like
also this,
Justice said,
I don't
is
know, as a person who's in the camp of I don't really know if my vote counts. I've definitely been there before. And I'm gonna be honest with you, we really don't know if they count. But what I do know is you gonna at least know what I want. You might not do it, but you at least gonna know how I felt. So for those who are in the camp of like, I don't even know if our ballots really count. Do they really care? They just gonna want to do what they want to do anyway. You're probably right. That's probably true. But you should at least show up, pull up, and show love and let the people know what you want. Okay? Just at least let them know what you want.
all right. So hopefully, if you're in a place of shared pride, cultural pride, collective pride, this is helping you to create a more authentic self for yourself because you feel safe enough to do it. You're not afraid to be who you really are. You don't feel like you have to put on a show of arrogance or a show of inflated self pride, inflated ego. You can be who you are and you'll be celebrated and it will be okay in that space.
Okay, so now we've come to the part of the show, part of the chat, where inevitably we are about to step on some toes. I'm just giving you the disclaimer now. Okay, this is the time where, just like at church, if the pastor's at the pulpit and he start driving up your street about, you know, it doesn't even have to be a list of sins. Just ways you not making the mark. You missing the mark, which is all sin is at the end of the day. This is when you just look straight ahead. Okay. If you're listening to this with someone who is a prideful individual, don't look at them or look over here. Just look straight ahead. Okay. Let the things rain on and fall down as they need to. Um, and we just know we stepping on toes. And we're stepping on our own toes, okay? Because as we've already reiterated, this is a developed universal emotion of pride, right? None of us are exempt from pride or ego. But we all do have a choice about whether we are using it, as we say almost every week around here, for good or bad. Are you on the head side of pride or the tail side of pride? And only you can really figure that out. Okay. So, yes, pride can boost our self esteem. Pride can drive us to great achievements and doing great things. But also, yes, pride can become excessive. Okay. And it can definitely lead to a lot of harmful behaviors and attitudes that really affect ourselves and the people around us. So we got to talk about it. Okay. And I don't want us to just think about it like, yes, that one person. I want you to think, me too. That's what I want you to think, because all of us can find ourselves in this spiral. And the more self aware you are, the more you listen to this episode, the more you'll have less opportunities to fall into the trap. Okay, so when pride evolves into narcissism, which is very, very easy to do, period, but especially in these United States of America, I feel like our nation, again, we don't talk about this enough. If there was a medal for breeding narcissists, we would be winners. We would be the fire nation that
We
we
would
are.
have the gold
Okay,
medals, all the
we
freaking gold
all
medals.
gold medals for narcissism. Okay. So narcissism is a trait that is literally characterized by an inflated sense of self. Okay. Just unhealthy, unnecessary amount of self-importance and an excessive, deep need for excessive and, dare I say, obsessive attention and admiration. Okay. People who are narcissistic usually have like a grandiose sense of personal superiority, entitlement, which is definitely going to put a strain on your personal relationships and hinder your personal growth, but they can't see that. They exhibit excessive pride that can also blind them from their own faults. Um, in the time that I did spend in theater school when I was a thespian, we used to talk about that when we would dissect and talk about plays, which is the idea of hubris, which was usually some very obvious character flaw or trait or something that usually showed up at the top of the plate for said character, but they was just blind to it. And throughout the course of the gauntlet of said story, that trait that was very, very obvious to everybody else in the story, probably the audience watching, eventually that character would be like, I realized I could never see before that I was. Let's take the Wiz or the Wizard of Oz, for example. Dorothy was taking her family and her surroundings for granted, right? Until she got thrown into a whole nother spot. Very kind of easy to see at the top, but it's not till you get to like the third act and we singing all these songs that she goes, I just realized I took everybody for granted and I was always home and home was where I was, that kind of thing, right? So a narcissist is usually a person who just really exhibits this type of excessive pride. They're really blind to their own faults, and that really can prevent them from accepting any type of constructive criticism or acknowledging their mistakes. Right? We just watched the Wiz recently, which is why it's in my head. But like, if you remember, like Annie M and that one was trying to tell Dorothy, like, girl, you living too small. Like, you think it's too small. Like, you should go after this other job. She's like, no, I like the kids in kindergarten. And she was like, nah, girl, you should go for this job. They had that man that came over to the house that they were trying to hook her up with. She was like, oh, I don't know about all that. Again, living very, very small, kind of taking things for granted, especially in the white version. But then you get woken up out of that. Okay. Research has shown that high self-esteem rather than low self-esteem is often associated with aggression when it comes to narcissists. So if you think about those people who are like really high in their self-esteem, they also might be a little aggressive in some places. And when people get super inflated and have a sense of pride and ego, and or they feel a sense of pride and they feel that their ego is threatened, um, sometimes that can lead to hostility and violence. This is a phenomenon that is known as threatened egotism, and it can lead to a lot of aggressive behavior, particularly when you're talking about a narcissistic person having to receive insulting criticism. And it might not always be insulting. It just might be like, you could do that better, but they're going to turn up
Pop
on
off.
pop
Pop
off,
all the way off. That is when the pop off
the pop
happens.
off. And
If this
so,
person is very narcissistic, it's just going to turn into something
craziness.
else.
And in a lot of cases, conflicts tend to arise with these type of people because they're pride driven behaviors. Like, you know, not to just bring it to the Black community, but I would say in America, period. But I think we tend to highlight it more in our communities, especially the white media, but we don't have time. Um, when you talk about homicides, assaults,
Listen,
crimes,
I just
again,
I
that's
just saw
not
a
just Black
story.
people.
Yeah, I just saw a story. I didn't look it all the way up yet, but some poor man got shot at his on his wedding day about some road rage or
I
something
think
that
someone told me
happened,
that.
like a driving accident. I mean, I don't know if he was going to the wedding, come from whatever, but he's standing there in one picture with his wife. They eating cake, and then you talking about she became a widow in the same day because
Man,
somebody
somebody
got
popped off.
into it in about a car or a situation in a pop-up. So you have to know in that situation, somebody's ego felt totally
Completely
threatened,
threatened.
so that they had to react in such a violent way that it wound up in somebody being dead. It's crazy.
And so, yes, you have homicides, you have assaults, um, and sometimes, we can talk about our community. And this is not me like coming for anybody. Listen, I'm a big believer in systemic racism. I think these systems are set in place for us to participate in these systems, particularly Black men, sometimes Black women, right? But sometimes we get into homicidal or assaulting type crimes because it's more so about disrespect. You feel disrespected.
Yep,
Sometimes there's money involved in a thing. Sometimes there's drugs involved in a thing. Sometimes it's whatever the said thing is, right? But usually it's a pride problem. I feel like you
yep,
disrespected me,
yep,
right? And then that turns into something else. And because we are people who have been cheated out of a lot of things, right? Sometimes we can be vanity slaves. We can be subject to materialism. But in a lot of cases, in a place where we don't have the material things that we will want, or the money that we want, or even the emotional things, the love that we want, the support that we want, the family structure that we want, sometimes as a people, we really lean in super hard to that pride. And if you feel like you're being disrespected in a lot of communities, that's the be all end all. And so it really highlights that a lot of really very small, very minor disagreements sometimes turn into very serious confrontations that can have violent confrontations, legal consequences. And we've really seen, I actually was just watching Lauren London on a podcast today that I had never seen before, called the Now Podcast. Um, but yeah, just listen to her talk about hustle and their life together and all. But us losing him was a result of that kind of stuff, where somebody felt like they was being disrespected, so they had to do the most, right? And we lost a father, a lover, a great Black man in our community, somebody who this world really still needed, because some nigga got caught up in disrespect and felt some type of way, right? And literally ended this man's life. And so, crazier things have happened. But again, if we are operating in, we can check these things for ourselves. Hopefully things like that will happen less and less. And that's why I said I feel like this is probably one of our most important episodes, because nobody talks about pride in depth like this unless it's at the pulpit and they really try to make you feel bad about it. But it is literally the way that most of us operate on a daily basis
In
in a way
some
that
form or
can have
another.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, in some form or another that can have dire consequences when left unchecked. I'm not saying don't have pride. I'm not saying don't have a sense of respect. But when you get into, you know, altercations, pop offs, your self esteem comes with a certain amount of, you know, arrogance or egotism or aggression associated with it, which, you know, sometimes as a culture we've celebrated, that can get tricky for
Listen,
us.
I can tell you one for black women. If you're a black woman in my generation and you're
You gotta
thinking,
get
well, I
close to
don't
the
do
mic a
any,
little.
you're a black woman in my generation and you're thinking, I don't pop off like that. I don't do this and the other. I can tell you one that you do that I know you do, because I'm guilty of it as well. We don't ask for help. We will honestly take the weight of the world on our shoulders, can't hardly stand up, go to bed 3 o'clock in the morning, get up at 7 o'clock to try and get everything done. We the head of this committee at the church, and we got to make all the little place settings for the tea, and we got to make sure that all the cupcakes for the bake sale are decorated. Just all the things that we do and do and do and do and do, and our we feel like we're self-sacrificing, but some of it, honesty, truthful chat, is us being too prideful to ask for help, or being too prideful to think anybody else can do it beside us. And so that is something that I feel like my generation of black women deal with, that, oh my God, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done, blah 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 blah. A form of pride. It really is.
Saying that
Um,
because that's true, I think. But I also feel like it is, how do I want to say this? Not masking a lack of self-worth, but it's one of those things of like, if you are not the person that yes, Jess, shout out to you. It is too many jobs.
yeah,
um, yeah, it is one of those things where I think that, and I'm just gonna say this how I feel it. I feel like if you are not if you are a black woman who is not doing all of those things, what value are you adding?
exactly.
How can people appreciate you and see you and love you and all of those things without you doing all of the things? And I think that that is a lot of the big question around, yes, it's pride to be able to provide for your family or do things or help people or whatever, but I think some of that is fighting to be seen, fighting to be
Yeah,
acknowledged, like
absolutely.
all of that, which is in a weird low
It can be
self-esteem,
the bad
hubristic
sense of
pride
pride.
way. Like
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's still
It
hubristic
it
pride.
can definitely be the bad sense of pride. And
Yeah.
again, if we want to talk about it, and this sounds like a whole nother episode, is we can go into the cultural ramifications of that too. Because, the most disrespected person in America is a black woman. So if that is traditionally how we have been viewed over the last 200 or 300 years, then yes, we fight to prove that we're worth something. Now, how we prove our self-worth, we have probably chosen some wrong ways to do that, and then got stuck in the pride hamster wheel of it, that somebody tells you, oh, the tea was so beautiful, everything was so, the decorations, everything was so, and now that boosts your self-worth, and now you're on that hamster wheel of like I got to keep that hit coming, I got to keep that drug coming of somebody saw what I did and said it was good. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
there's a whole lot in that.
And I can hear y'all talking about, but what if I'm not a black woman? Yes, all women do that. Like I was like, all different racial groups of women do that. But I think, in some instances,
The
like white
culture,
women, like white
America
it was like
has made
white
it.
women, like you'll get to sit down, right? Like somebody will take over some stuff for you. You know what I'm saying? I think in our communities, it literally is like we just had to step up in a way that some other women have just not had to step up historically, culturally. Um,
And some of it is race, and some
and
of it
that's
is
probably
class,
some of
and
it's
some
right,
of
and
it is
some of it is sexist,
socioeconomic, and some of it.
right?
Listen, I'm
And
down
a
here
lot
in
of it is
Texas,
it's sexist because
where
let me tell you something, men do not be having no pride issues.
mm-mm,
A lot of things women be in their head about I don't know if I can, and imposter syndrome and Talk to a man for 2 hours. You ain't gonna hear none of them words, none of them things come out of their mouths. Most of them exist in authentic pride 98% of the time. And then that
Yep.
hubristic pride creeps up on the ones that ain't really doing their work. But men
Yep.
don't have those
Yep. Yep.
problems, which I think is a different conversation. But still, I
Yep.
just want to point that out
All
as well.
right. All right. So anyway, back to the violent, situations and the legal consequences and the different things that happen to us. And like we're saying, too often in America, it is part of the African American experience for whatever reason. How it got to be there, whether it was, imposed, internalized, however we did it, it's
It's
been
all
kind
white
of baked.
supremacy at the end of the day, but
Yep,
sure.
baked into our cultural cake. So, and it's been celebrated in our cultural expressions. You can hear us say, I don't need nobody to help me do nothing. I'm going to get it myself. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do whatever. So, yes, some of that is authentic pride of being able to provide and take care, but some of it is not. And so that's where the self evaluation and looking at what you're doing and how you've been raised and what your values are and how you've been living your life and what your lifestyle is and all those things that we talk about that we'll be trying to drill into your head about self-evaluation and self-awareness so that you can see if you are doing this authentically and if it is healthy for you, like we talked about last week. Healthy consideration versus what healthy consideration versus
Um, um,
dumb brain. Healthy consideration. Let's
you
just say
know,
it
I was like, y'all watch it.
this way. um, so learn how to do that for yourself. Learn how to
Churning versus
get to
churning.
churning. Yes, learn how to get to the point where you're doing healthy consideration versus churning, where you're just worrying and that you're able to recognize when the negative part of pride is rearing up on you, when narcissism is rearing up, when peer pressure is causing you to have consequences and react in certain ways, prideful ways that you would normally react. Like be aware,
And
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 see.
that's one of the things I could say that I'm very sort of proud, even though the beef this year was brutal. But I'm very proud of hip hop culture in terms of growing up and maturing in a way that there was a season where we was applauding people for doing dumb stuff. You know what I'm saying? We was celebrating, what I mean, protect your rep and do this. Yeah, slap that dick at the club and like do you know what I mean? Like we was really celebrating that kind of foolishness. But I think to see hip hop really grow a conscience in some areas, people are developing in their manhood and their womanhood and wanting to have that on wax and display that as much as some of the other things is super important. So just want to throw that out because that is part of developing self-awareness and practicing humility, which are really critical strategies to overcoming pride for
Yeah.
sure.
And these are skills we all need to harness and cultivate. It isn't just like Jess said, for that one narcissistic person you got in your head that you like, oh, I'm gonna send this to you. I'm gonna forward this. I'm gonna send them a clip.
You
I'm
know
gonna
you
like
got
and
them.
share. We want you to like and
We
share,
want you to
but
like and share, but don't also
exactly,
be petty with it too.
yeah, have the conversation. Other than just saying you need to listen to this. The information is kind of meant to keep us all on track and to try and see how we can move forward with this, how we can practice mindfulness, being present in the moment, listening, pay attention to yourself. Am I being prideful in this situation? Have this is the one I love. Have I been talking for 30 minutes and nobody else has said a word? And everybody is looking at me with this kind of glazed over look in their face. I'll be like, do you hear yourself? Simple example, but one that I think we've all come across. All right. If somebody has some constructive criticism, don't let nobody just beat you up or whatever. But if you're in a situation where somebody has something to offer you that might be helpful, instead of becoming defensive, try to view the criticism as an opportunity for growth and learning. And it might not even really be a criticism. You just feel like that is that a criticism. It might just be a suggestion. All right. Cultivate empathy, make an effort to understand other people's perspective and experiences, and then that will reduce some of that self-centeredness and thinking that it's all about you. People are talking about you and people are mad at you and people are going to be saying this about you. And half the time, people ain't even thinking about you really that much, but that's your pride that's letting you think the whole world is watching you, right? Get out of yourself, volunteer and go serve somebody else. And then you'll be like, oh, Lord, I've been in a nursing home every day for the last 2.5 weeks. And let me tell you something, when you see what these nurses and nurses aides and LVNs and things go through with people that are,
Shout out to them. Shout out to the workers.
older and have
Essentials.
situations and all that kind of stuff, that'll take you off your self-centeredness and your pride if you go volunteer over there, and they'll be happy to have you. And acknowledge your mistakes. Admit when you're wrong and apologize sincerely. And this will help you maintain your relationships and contribute to personal growth. And listen, sometimes it might take you a minute to acknowledge a mistake, but when you realize, you know what, that was a mistake. I should go back. I should say something about that and make it right. Try and make it right. So, you know, if you're able to do these things, you're going to improve your mental health, improve your relationships. You're going to have more connectedness and a positive interaction with the people around you. And then we want you to strike a balance between healthy self-esteem and humility, because that is where it's the sweet spot where you have your well-being, you have your connections with other people that are healthy and wealthy, and create generational wellness, which of course is what we want you to do. We want you to look at the generation before you, the generation coming up after you, and see where is there, as church people would say, a stronghold of pride in my family. Where is there, did our grandmother, did who was like this? And is this something we as a family want to continue to have be a part of our legacy? Or is it something that we can do about it?
Big facts. And of course, we don't want to give pride a completely bad rap. Like we said, it is two sides of the same coin. So pride can actually also be a very useful tool for personal growth when you use it wisely. Okay, we're back to the good side. It can really boost our mental health, help us with our personal achievements. Like we said earlier, it can really motivate us. It can help us set healthy expectations and goals, and actually teach us how to learn from our failures and our setbacks. So this is back to authentic pride, right? Which again drives us to pursue our goals, gives us greater determination. Research actually shows that it can nudge our minds to find the value in the future, like fostering our diligence and our dedications to make sure that we make it to the end of our lives in health and wellness and all those things. And this type of pride, in terms of authentic pride, really just helps with increasing our efforts and our successes in various areas of our lives in the workplace. And pride is really an effective motivational tool on the authentic pride side, because it helps you have higher self-esteem that does not have aggression with it, just higher self-esteem, lower anxiety, and a greater desire to help others because you're sharing your expertise, which goes back to what Pam just said about volunteering and empathy and like getting you outside of yourself, right? Authentic pride also can help you again with setting appropriate goals, because it helps you to identify the fact that, which is very true, which is something I'm actually dealing with now. Not all the goals that you set are equally beneficial for your well-being. Like they don't all align with you. They just might be like a good idea that you had, but do they actually align with who you are? And authentic pride really helps you sort of survey those things or take inventory of those things. If you ask yourself the following questions: is this goal really personally important to me? Like, I think sometimes, especially in American culture, we just grind culture, hustle culture. We just be doing stuff except being like, do I personally care about this? Will it be meaningful to me to accomplish this goal or achievement? Um, will this goal stretch me? Is it challenging me, right? Asking something of me, having me
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice, but
Mm-hmm.
is also actually attainable. Like it's actually something I can actually hold in my hand or have or get the certificate or get the diploma or whatever the thing is. Or are you just gonna constantly be chasing it? Will it be motivating to you even when it's hard, right? Is this a goal about accomplishing something, or avoiding something? I don't think we ask ourselves this question enough. Are you doing this goal? Are you setting this thing for yourself because you
That is
want
a
to
really
accomplish
good
something?
question.
Right. Do you want to accomplish something? Or are you running from something? Are you avoiding something? Are you trying to not be like your granny or not be like your mom or not be like your dad? Right. Are you approaching this goal with a successful mindset in mind, or are you just approaching it with an avoidance mindset? I think that's important. Am I being super specific about what I want to do or what I want to achieve? The more specific you are when you set the goal, right? We talked about SMART goals in previous episodes, right? But the more specific you are, the more you can figure out when you hit the mark, and you can be more specific in the celebration, right, of the achievement because you did the thing. And then, does this goal align with my values? Do I really, again, back to importance, is this fully connected to who I am and the type of person that I am and how I'm living authentically in this moment? Like, will I feel a deep level of satisfaction? Will I be more connected to my values? And can I imagine myself genuinely being happy after achieving this thing? Right. We talk about manifesting and, envisioning things. So really using that skill to be like, am I going to be happier when I do this? Or am I going to be like, that was a complete waste of my time? So being an authentic pride can really help you with that. And lastly, authentic pride helps you experience when you experience setbacks, right? That's an inevitable part of our personal growth, right? So that it's not like, am I ever going to have a setback? It's a matter of when you're going to have a setback. And when you
Right.
have a setback or what you perceive as a failure, how do you work through it? And so having an authentic pride helps with that, because if you're hubristic, right, if you're in hubristic pride, um you're not even going to take inventory or stock of mistakes or
Mm-mm.
failures or setbacks, right, or things that you just going to ignore it, right? But if you're an authentic pride, you can really take a look at that, right, and ask these questions. What did I learn from this experience? Right? You're not just going through failures or setbacks, or there's something there that you can learn. So how can I view and develop this experience as a defining moment instead of a moment of failure? How can I be kind to myself after this experience? I'm the queen of beating myself up for things, and I'm constantly like working on it. So I'm always asking myself, like, okay, bro, just chill. Like, can you be nicer to yourself about this? I really had a lot of like critical stuff. I think my therapist asked me about it not too long ago, and then it like kicked it back up, and I was just like, dang, now I gotta go back to fighting the critical voices again. But they're not as bad as they used to be, and I can acknowledge them now, right? That's part of my self-awareness. Other questions you can ask: how can I look at what went wrong here without being judgmental? Right? We talked about that, I think, last week, about how can I sort of be a neutral observer of the situation,
Yeah.
right? Without putting all these emotions in it, talking about I'm terrible, I don't deserve anything, I'm this, I'm that, right? And how can you apply these lessons in the future? What is an overall life lesson I can take from this experience? What is the gem that I can mine from this dirty situation? Right? Something I'd rather not be in. Dang, I wish this project had worked like this. Man, I wish the funding had come through. But if it didn't, what can I learn? How can I evolve as a person and become better from this experience? Right? Everything is a lesson, a learning lesson meant to teach you something overall. So don't just get stuck in the muck and mire, as they say in the church, of the situation. Be like looking for gems and jewels in here. And then how can I use this experience to my advantage the next time? Right? You're gonna run into maybe not this exact situation, but a similar situation. And so when you're operating in authentic pride, when you're goal setting or looking to achieve something new or doing something for the first time, and those setbacks happen, those mistakes happen, you're in that certain learning curve flow. Going back to ask yourself these questions just really helps in setback moments to be stepping stones for personal growth, to help you build resilience when you're in challenging times. And remember that learning from failure, okay, is a combination, right? It's like a cake batter, a stew, or good liquor or something, good alcoholic drink. You got to have humility, resilience, and a willingness to adapt, right? And to evolve, which is really what we've been talking about. Shout out to Woman Evolve. Evolving, right? You got to be humble. Be humble. Kendrick didn't write
Sit
that to help
down.
you. Sit down, start to cultivate your resilience and be willing to adapt and evolve, because if you're operating in Your hubristic pride, you ain't gonna want to do none of this. So these are some of the benchmarks that you could use to be like, I'm in hubristic pride versus I'm in authentic pride, and authentic pride is where we want to be.
All right. So to quickly recap, like just said, pride is a two-sided coin, authentic, hubristic. The head side is positive with heads or tails, if you want to think of it easier that way. Heads side of pride is positive with feelings of self-worth, accomplishment, confidence boosting, drive to do great things. The tail side is negative with feelings of too much self-assuredness, narcissism, arrogance, no room for error, learning or humility, which can lead to full blown, like we said, narcissism if left unchecked. Pride is a universal emotion. It's
Yeah, be a
complex.
little closer to the mic. A little
It's a
closer.
universal emotion. It's complex. It's developed to help us to navigate social hierarchies and attain higher status in our communities. It requires self awareness and self evaluation. Say it again for the people in the back. It requires self awareness and self evaluation in social context to be able to do that. It can be expressed as authentic, hubristic. We talked about that. Shared pride, cultural pride, being in a group helps to elevate the good pride. I feel like this is like good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. You know, when you go to the doctor, you get your blood work done, they say your good cholesterol is this, your bad cholesterol is this. So we want to make sure our good pride is more activated than our bad pride. And narcissism is the most extreme version of pride. If when it you're developing a trait of inflated sense of self-importance, deep need for excessive attention and admiration. You can control that. Again, self-awareness, humility. That's the pride you want to surrender. When we talked about our topic today, surrendering your pride to elevate. The negative pride, that narcissistic part of you, is the part that needs to be surrendered. All right. Um, Ultimately, pride can be a wise and wonderful tool, personal tool for personal growth if you use it correctly. All right. It'll motivate you to achieve. Um, the people around you will be happier. You'll have better relationships. If you, it's just so like ingrained in me how important it is to be able to admit when you make a mistake and take a look at it really hard and say, okay, why was this what didn't happen here, but more importantly, why is it hard for me to say that I wasn't perfect, which nobody is perfect, but sometimes it's just hard for people to admit I'm not perfect, and that's okay. So hopefully we've given you some tools to kind of think about for how you can get to generational wellness, how you can take a look at these things and teach it to your older people, teach it to your younger people, teach it to yourself, your peers, and hopefully it will help you.
That's right, y'all. You want to be operating in authentic pride, okay, and checking that hubristic pride. And this is like a really important tool, I think, for getting to creating generational wellness again. And how it's used is up to you, right? You can lean into hopefully a better choice if you've been operating in the wrong type of pride, okay? And I think it's important to know pride isn't bad. Pride is not all bad. And I think with many things in our world and our culture today, we don't have enough nuanced conversations. Everything ain't always so black and white. Okay. So that's why we love
Mhm.
podcasts. We love having these types of conversations so that you can figure out what side of pride you are on and what you need to surrender to. Okay. You need to surrender the negative up and surrender and lean into the good type of pride. Okay. Um, so yeah, don't be swallowed up by negative pride. That's pretty much the main goal. I think is this the last?
No, girl, we
No,
have
no.
one more
We
Thursday.
have one more Thursday. One more surrender. Another surrender, as the
I,
song says.
I kind
Um
of feel it in my
from
Shonda what it's
from
going to be about. So come back
another
next week.
so yeah, man. Thank you so much for your time. We went a little long, but this was really important. I feel like we really we're gonna help some people. I feel like we always help people, but this one I'm like, Yeah, I feel like in a couple years from now, they're gonna be like, dang, that Pride episode really got me, bro. Like I didn't even know. So again, be kind when you send this to people. Don't just be like, "Oh, I heard a podcast that was about you." Okay, make sure you check in your stuff too. Check your house.
Say to tell the people it's about us because it is
Sweep
about
around.
us.
It's about this is us. This is us.
This
Okay.
is us.
So we hope you'll come back next week. We're gonna be talking about another surrender. Okay. So make sure you are following us on all the socials, YouTube channel, of course. That's where we come in live and direct at y'all. Be sure to follow us on IG, Facebook, fan base. We're at Create Generational Wellness on all the things. Again, full transparency, we are not posting things now, but we will be, and we want you to be there to see them first, to like, subscribe, share, post out clips, send them to people, do all that thing once we get our marketing house in order. And just want to reiterate, because we want you to know it's coming. Once we get to 100 episodes, this is 94, okay? Once we get to 100 episodes, we will be taking a mini hiatus, a little break, so that I can just catch up on some things. We got some new members joining the team. I'm very excited. And yeah, we'll be firing on all cylinders for January, coming to y'all, having changed some things up. So we're very excited about that. But you ain't gonna know, okay? If you're not subscribed and following and liking, we're at Create Generational Wellness on all the platforms. With that, we'll bid you adieu.
I'll
And
see
we'll see you
you
next week.
soon.
And we'll be back
Yep.
together,
Back together again.
again. Uh in person
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
next
All
week.
right.
All right. Bye,
Bye,
y'all.
guys.
Beep.